right, hour number 3 on Pro Football Today as they caught me taking my glasses off. I'm sorry, it's just going to be a thing all year. I've tried to do the glasses thing. What?
You've been doing it all show.
Take it off. I get it, but I was trying to do it before the break as I stare into the camera as we start hour 3 of Pro Football Today.
I thought it was like your thing.
I know. For the people on radio, this doesn't matter, but I try to do this move where I look over the glasses. They're only readers. I can see fine. I can see everything, but when I look at my computer and my notes, I need to have the glasses on. So it's going to be an on-off thing the whole year. We'll try and find a happy medium, but when I come out of breaks, I like to do it with the no glasses so you can see all of my very average-looking face. So what we're trying to do here in hour number 3, Mike Blute and Kevin Walsh on Pro Football Today, we're going to go through a lot of the awards. We actually had a fun Twitter Spaces over on Friday, kind of a happy hour deal, and I would encourage all of you to go to Twitter and follow at the Kevin Walsh, at Mike Blewett, and everybody else on the grid at SportsGrid TV, at SportsGrid. And it was a look into the awards races, and I think those are a lot of fun. I'll say this as a fan, and Kevin, I think I maybe even said this to you on air a few years ago. As a sports fan, over time, as I've gotten older, as much as I inform everybody to regret I'm getting older year by year, and it doesn't always feel good, aches and pains and everything else, the one thing that has really started to formulate for me over the years is I don't sweat awards or Hall of Fame stuff anymore. I do love to bet on it, and that's why we're going to talk about it in hour number 3. But I don't get mad about MVP votes or Rookie of the Year, and this guy should have won, and how's that guy first ballot? And none of that stuff matters to me at all. It's a really arbitrary voting process for all of these awards. You see really silly results over time, things that don't make sense, and that's okay. I think as you get older as a sports fan, you should not worry about it. They're just individual awards. It doesn't mean the player stinks or he's actually better or worse than the player who got voted over him. So that's what I'll say as a fan. But I really think it's a great way to take advantage of markets that are a little less efficient and rely on an arbitrary voting process. That's why we like to talk about it so much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, I could sit here and tell Mike that what he said to me many years ago turned out to be correct, and I could give him that, but I won't acknowledge that I get nowhere near as angry as I once did. You were wrong, Mike. No, you were totally right. Probably because LeBron dropped out of the MVP race and it coincided.
See?
With that is
a perfect
what
example.
It is.
You love LeBron, and it makes you crazy that people say that there's other players that are better than him. They're not.
It still bothers me.
But it's okay.
It still bothers me. But it's all right. We don't have to get it. In fact, I'm probably going to get a text from Big MC. I can't believe you just mentioned LeBron on Pro Football Today, but you shouldn't be surprised by that. With that being said, I don't know if there is a singular market type that I enjoy discussing more than awards. They are so fun. You have to find the balance between stats, narrative, value. It is just an absolute treat. And we're going to talk about the MVP award. And I'll tell you, there's one thing about this market that I do feel. I don't know if there's value on a single quarterback. It feels like they have intentionally kind of put them all in a spot where it doesn't feel like you're getting the best of the number. But then you're left doing what, Mike? Betting a skill player in a market that might as well be named best quarterback.
Yeah, as we welcome in our radio audience, Mike Blute and Kevin Walsh talking about seasonal awards. Kevin mentioning the MVP race right now on FanDuel. Josh Allen 7-1, Pat Mahomes 10-1, Brady same thing, Herbert 9-1, Aaron Rodgers 10-1, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson 12 and 14-1, Stafford 14-1, Dak Prescott 14-1. To Kevin's point, they're all at the top of the list. Where do we finally start to find value? Kyler Murray 20-1, Lamar Jackson 20-1. There we go. That's an interesting one. Derek Carr 25-1. He'd have to put up some real numbers, but we'll get a little bit deeper into it. But as you read through it, in order to get value, I think Lamar is the first one that really you start to perk up and be like, oh, geez, he could run it back and have a crazy season. And at 20-1, that is interesting. Some of the other guys, I'll explain why I'm not as hot on them. However, Aaron Rodgers was one of the top players to win the award last year, and he did ultimately win it. But in the previous 5 years, Those guys were long shots. Lamar was a long shot when he won it. Pat Mahomes, when he won it, he was not a top favorite, as much as we don't think of it that way now. When Patrick Mahomes won that award, he was not a favorite to win it. So really 5 of the last 6 years, we've had guys that are a little bit deeper down the list actually bring home the award. So that's something to consider, Kev.
Yeah, certainly so. I do think the top of the board right now, if you're betting it, I think you love this guy to have a monstrous season. Like I do not want to get into a spot where I predict Mahomes wins MVP every single year. I thought he'd win it last year. A part of me thinks he's going to win it again. But is there value at 8-1? I'm not so sure. On your Lamar point, I will just say this. Lamar has the ability to offer statistical advantages that others cannot match, plus the narrative of what kind of help does he have outside of Mark Andrews. And last year, I just hope people remember this, they were 8-3, he was injured, and they finished 8-9. He is that valuable to this football team.
No doubt. We're going to come back, talk more about Lamar and other options at the MVP and all the other awards right here on The Grid.
College football today.
All right, Liberty, home, LSU, home, Ole Miss, home, and at Missouri. They're going to be favored in all of those games. What about the front 3? Home against Cincinnati. They were a touchdown favorite. It's come down a bit. Going to be favored by double digits against South Carolina and certainly against Missouri State. That's 7. I think my floor is 7. I think this team could win. Maybe we keep talking about those 10-plus win market. I think they could flirt with it.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
So Tom Brady coming back under center. He wants to make sure he stays sharp, play some of those starters against the Colts. It does make some sense where before you'd say to yourself, are they crazy? Why would you play anybody in the final preseason game? Keep in mind, you have that extra week because we used to have a 4th preseason game, which we don't anymore. So it does make some sense here. Keep these guys sharp. As I like to say, they're football players. They need to play football. They can't just sit around for 3 weeks and then tee it up on week 1.
Only on Sports Grid. The morning after.
And his favorite setting in all of college football, at least one of them, the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas.
You know how I feel about the Sun Bowl, Ben. If I'm a 12-0 coach and I win my championship game and they say you're going to the college football playoff, no. I'm going to the rolling hills of Texas, El Paso. I'm taking my team to the Sun Bowl. Absolutely love the atmosphere.
The Sports Grid Network. Fantasy Sports Today.
Card, to be honest, for me, just is not a guy I ever end up targeting because I feel like he's a little bit too expensive for what he is. And, I prefer the guy we talked about earlier in the week, Trevor Lawrence. Probably even prefer Daniel Jones a little bit cheaper because those guys, Daniel Jones will run a little bit. Lawrence, I actually think, probably has an even better range of outcomes.
Only on Sports Grid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I'm not buying you dinner because I'm wrong. I'm buying you dinner because you're in town, and it's a nice thing for a friend to do to another friend. Just buy them dinner.
I have to pick up my phone and hold it right now because it's buzzing nonstop because you're talking.
Well, that's what I do, so that's kind of my thing. It's kind of hard to stop me from kind of hard to stop me from talking. People have tried for 45 years and it hasn't really worked yet. So,
the Bostonian versus the Book.
Pro Football Doc has found its new home right here with Sports Injury Central. And with that comes our expansion into other sports. Sports Injury Central will give you nonstop exclusive injury analysis from experienced team doctors from all 3 major sports. Doctors with resumes that include teams like the Chicago Bulls, the Texas Rangers, and the LA Chargers. So gain a fantasy, DFS, and betting edge right now for free at sicscore.com.
All right, back with hour number 3 here as we roll along till the top of the hour, 1 o'clock. We do have a couple of games today. As Kevin said earlier, one of them does matter. We think the Mitch versus Kenny starting in Pittsburgh. Maybe that decision has already been made and the Steelers have kept it closer to the vest. That would not surprise me with Mike Tomlin. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep believing. Don't stop believing that Kenny Pickett is going to the Hall of Fame until he gets benched for Mitch Trubisky in week 1. So we were talking about preseason awards, talking about the NFL MVP potential. And like I said, in the previous 5 years before last year, the guys that won were not one of the favorites. Aaron Rodgers coming into the 2020 season, coming off of that 2019 season where he was banged up and they struggled, he was not a favorite. Lamar wasn't. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, as we go back. Cam Newton probably was towards the top of the board and Aaron Rodgers before that. But, Kevin, you raised an interesting point. Where do we think that line of demarcation is between favorites and long shots?
I guess 21. And that's why I said the quarterbacks don't feel like any of them that you're actually thinking of as a long shot. Like if you and I were in conversation, I said, man, I think Trey Lance is a dark horse MVP candidate. That would fit the description. He's 25-1. There's not that much of a gap between him and Lamar, who's already won this award. So that's kind of my point there. If you're actually looking to take a huge home run swing, I think you need to look outside of the quarterback position. However, odds are that is a waste of your money because it has been such an MVP or a quarterback-based award. If I tried to sell you on someone that was a skill position player, there's really only one guy I would do that with. And it's because I genuinely believe if he stayed healthy last year, he might have won this award. And that's Derrick Henry at 75-1. Henry is one of few that are basic. I would think, Mike, would you agree? The consensus is he is the most important Tennessee Titan?
Yeah, it's not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not another
I don't know
option.
how many non-quarterbacks fit that description. I think TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. Is Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis? Cooper Kupp gets weird in LA, but with the Rams, I don't know. But Henry is on that list, and as you said, it's not a debate. If the Titans are awesome, again, we're not sure if that happens. But if they are, he is the guy that's going to get the credit. It's not Tannehill, who, by the way, 100-1 to an MVP. That's not a gap that we typically see between running back and quarterbacks there, but I actually believe it is warranted.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp's names will be bandied about, but Cooper Kupp put up a monster season last year, and he didn't win MVP. Brady and Rodgers certainly were getting more credit for their team's success than Cooper Kupp was. Yep. I think you lighting your money on fire to bet a positional player, especially a running back, even though the last positional player to win it was Adrian Peterson in 2012 when he put up a near record season, but there was also a comeback associated with that, a knee injury that he was coming back from. So Derrick Henry would have to put up a minimum of 2,106 rushing yards, breaking Eric Dickerson's record to do it, and the team would have to have success as well. I think people are more likely to give him the AP Offensive Player of the Year award as opposed to the MVP. Yeah. But, yeah, so go ahead.
Can I ask you about that quick, though? Do you think that there is now going to be this unspoken rule that Offensive Player of the Year will not go to quarterbacks? Like, is that where we are? That wasn't, I don't think, always the case with Offensive Player of the Year. But, again, look at this board here. Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, and Cooper Kupp started off, right? Lamar has better odds for Offensive Player of the Year than MVP. I don't know what world we're going to get to where one quarterback wins MVP and a different quarterback wins Offensive Player of the Year. But are you in this market ignoring quarterbacks now?
It's a totally fair question. You could craft a scenario where I'll pick whatever names. Josh Allen is great with the Bills, and he does win MVP because he's got 45 total touchdowns and 6 interceptions. But Lamar also takes the Ravens to a divisional title and runs for 900 yards and has 35 total touchdowns and whatever. And so he's put up an MVP-like season, just not quite as good as Josh Allen's. And then they're like, let's throw him a bone. It doesn't make sense, obviously, because you've just admitted he did not have as good an offensive season as Josh Allen did. They play the same position. But you're right. It is leaning towards positional players in that market. I'm with you on the Derrick Henry 75-1 thing. What about another player at 75-1? And I'll give credit to the Ringer NFL show. They were talking through this market, and one of the guys took a swing at 75-1 on Trevor Lawrence because there's a scenario where Doug Peterson works with Trevor Lawrence. He improved greatly. Division is a little weaker. It's probably the one most wide open division, even though I think the Colts are going to win. I have money on the Colts to win that division. Trevor Lawrence at 75-1 is a huge swing. I wouldn't do it, but it's a pretty interesting long-term, long shot that there is actually a path to do it. I've talked about Derek Carr where there's a path to do it. I think the odds have come down a little bit. Now he's 25-1, but you're just trying to find paths for guys to pull it off. Kirk Cousins at 40-1. Is there a path for him to pull it off? I just don't think the numbers will be there for the guys I just mentioned. There'll be far more spectacular numbers out of guys like Mahomes or Allen or Herbert or Rodgers or Brady.
So if you are going to grab some Trevor Lawrence 75-1, do yourself a favor. Bet the Jaguars to win the Super Bowl at 120-1.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
and to win the
by the way,
division
Mike,
and all that. Yeah.
which I have, it's small, but I do have a bet on the Jags to win the Super Bowl because I think 9-8 can win that division. I don't think the Texans are legitimate at all. I think Tannehill getting benched for Malik Willis, I think the whole thing can go awry. And then all of a sudden, you have basically just a 1-1 head-to-head with the Colts. Last year, things were messed up, and I think the Jags should be markedly better. If Trevor Lawrence is in the conversation for MVP, your 120-1 ticket will feel unbelievable, right? The notion of last year's Cincinnati. That's kind of the one thing I'll say with that market. You mentioned a Derek Carr. You mentioned a Kirk Cousins. The tough part, again, with those guys, Mike, is does it feel like I'm getting enough on Derek Carr, the 4th best odds in his division, to an MVP at 25-1? I just don't feel that way, right? I don't know if I'm getting real value on his other 25-1 counterparts in Trey Lance or Jalen Hurts. Like, Kirk Cousins at 40-1 doesn't even feel like I could, hey, by the way, the Vikings were the 1 seed. Here's 40-1 on Kirk Cousins. Do you want it? I think I might pass. It just doesn't feel like a guy that is ever going to win MVP. I'd rather just give me the Justin Jefferson OPOI award and a sprinkle on Dalvin Cook in the same market, and we'll figure it out from there, right? Those are the kind of things that I think make MVP so difficult.
Yeah, agreed. And again, what I say about awards all the time is that we're not sitting here predicting one player to win the award and getting it the night before the Super Bowl. We're trying to find a spread of options. I'll say specifically on Josh Allen. He's the favorite to win MVP right now. Take only a portion of that if you think that is an option that you want, because I think they can lose a few games in September and October, and his odds will get longer. Same with Mahomes.
Yeah.
Same with the Bucks. Those beginning of their schedules are a little bit tougher. My hottest take for this one, and I'm not as high on them, but Jameis Winston, Kev Walsh, led the NFL in passing just 3 years ago, 5,109 yards. Does he come back? Could he do it again? A lot of passing options. Could they beat out the Bucks? I don't think so, but 75-1 is interesting. Come back with more.
Pro Football Doc has found its new home right here with Sports Injury Central. And with that comes our expansion into other sports. Sports Injury Central will give you nonstop exclusive injury analysis from experienced team doctors from all 3 major sports. Doctors with resumes that include teams like the Chicago Bulls, the Texas Rangers, and the LA Chargers. So gain a fantasy, DFS, and betting edge right now for free at sicscore.com.
If you want to pick like a pro, you need to be in the know. The future of sports gaming is now, and we take you inside the lines, breaking down all the action and what it means for your bet slip. Turn down the game and tune into Sports Grid Radio. Other networks talk sports talk, but we walk the walk, right up to the window. Sports Grid Radio. Listen free on the Sports Grid Radio app, iHeart, or TuneIn, or catch us on SiriusXM Sports Grid Channel 159.
You might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
In the landscape of college sports, some things remain the same.
College
And
football
that's the dominance
today.
of Alabama in winning SEC championship.
It's the island of misfit toys.
Fantasy sports today.
You have to understand that.
Can they survive those first 4 games? They can go 2 and 2.
Pro football today.
This franchise, they are comical. Now, I'm not making light of the injuries. This is a brutal rash.
In-game live, all access.
You can take the money line.
And the sports book, if you shop around, you can get it at 133. But that's my best bet on the night, Joe. So that's the one I'm going big.
In-game live, prime time.
I'm a bit nostalgic. I'm going with an international, Jason Day and Sergio Garcia.
But boy, you want to give me 8.5 points with a desperate team facing elimination?
Get the winning edge. Only on Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Maurice Allen, 2015-2016 European Long Drive Tour champion, 2017 world number 1. Me personally, I keep my game face on me all the time. Especially coming out of the bunker, leaving the range, or even leaving the course. What's your story?
All right, Kev, I'm going to hand off the ball and let you run with it because I know the market that you've been most fascinated by is Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to hand the ball to you, and you can fire some questions at me because I know you've had a lot to think about this market in particular.
No doubt about it. And I want to set the stage right away with the co-favorite alongside his teammate. It's Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. We'll get to the wide receivers in a minute. Kenny Pickett right now sits at plus 900 to win this award. I have wondered what happens to this number if he is named the week 1 starter. And that is what I want to start with, Mike. Not just whether or not you think there is a chance he is named the week 1 starter, but play odds maker here a little bit for me, okay? Does Kenny Pickett move to plus 200, lower, higher, if he is named the week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
It's a good one. I'm not as good on this, but I would say if I were setting it right now, Kenny Pickett goes to plus 250 if he's named the starter.
Yeah.
That's where I would put it. And it could get bet down, but I think that's a reasonable number.
I think the gap between Pickett and all of the guys that sit behind him, which feels just littered with question marks, would warrant that type of movement. It is why we know, cash out buttons are there, right, Mike? If you want to grab a little bit of Pickett today, before this game, and if he ultimately wins the job, you will have done your job by holding him at 9-1. And if he doesn't, I don't think they're going to double his number, triple his number all of a sudden. It will take probably, 6 weeks of Trubisky looking legitimate where we go, okay, I don't know when we see Pickett, for him to all of a sudden feel like he's not going to be able to win this award. Now, the next part of this market, though, is just the 1,000 wide receivers that feel like they've all created no separation from one another. George Pickens is our first option. Chris Olave, Sky Moore, Romeo Doubs, Drake London, Treylon Burks. These are the guys that are 14-1 or lower. You said something that I totally agree with is the willingness to lean on the fantasy market at times when we talk about projections, because they're so in the weeds on these guys. Who is going to really splash? Mike, have you found separation between one of these guys from the rest when we talk about rookie wide receivers?
I think offensive rookie of the year is to your point, the most fascinating market. As far as receivers are concerned, it is wild how Pickens has shot up the board. Obviously, the Steelers are a public team. He's been a very public player this preseason. Thoughts that he's beating out Chase Claypool and having an opportunity to garner a lot of targets. The only thing I would caution people is this Steelers offense, the only way that they're going to put the ball in the air a lot is if they're losing a lot. And I don't think, this is not a fan talking, I don't think they're going to be that bad. I think people, as they're talking about the Steelers, are frustrated by the offense and what Ben looked like and what the offensive line did and will look like this year. I think it's a bottom 5 group in the league going into the year. Chances for improvement, obviously. But I don't know how many opportunities he'll have. Deontay Johnson is still the possession guy. The Pickens path is red zone. But they have Pat Freiermuth. They have Najee Harris. Chase Claypool, for all the frustration that you can have of him as a player, constantly leaving his feet and falling to the ground without the ball, he's still a red zone target. He's massive. So Pickens would have to be a big touchdown guy, and that's really threading the needle. I think his odds are way too low. I think people have jumped on his ability to be a starter there as indicative of his chance to succeed. And that is a part of the story. I just don't think he'll put up crazy numbers like that. As far as the other receivers are concerned, you're right. I don't see a lot of separation. Olave feels like, me coming off of talking about 75-1 Jameis, Olave feels like a guy in a good position. We haven't heard lots about Sky Moore, but what if he succeeded in a role in Kansas City? And Drake London seems to be a favorite of a lot of people, but again, your chance in Atlanta is them trailing so much, but Pitts is the number 1 receiver on that team. Not even close. I think you'll see a crazy target share this season. So Treylon Burks, in and out of the lineup, scores a touchdown in the preseason game. I'm looking at guys, unfortunately, they're on bad teams, and that's at the running back position. I think Kenneth Walker has an opportunity to be the starter in Seattle, and they're going to run the ball a ton, and he can put up big numbers, 250 carries, whatever you want to put on yardage, throw in a few touchdowns, and it could look like a really nice rookie season, but on a bad team. And you say the same thing about Dameon Pierce, and I do have his odds way longer than they are now because there was a sense that he was going to be the starter, and they're now at 16-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But I just said 2 segments ago that I think they have a chance to be the first or second pick in the draft. So are you going to take a running back that put up nice numbers on the second or worst team in the league to be Offensive Rookie of the Year? That would be surprising. I don't know if that aligns with the story you're trying to tell, but I do have a piece of Dameon Pierce, so that is the guy that is kind of separated for me amongst this maelstrom of rookies. Olave of the receivers is the one that is pretty fascinating to me, though, because there's a path there for him to be Jameis's number 1 target.
There's also, though, a path that he is 4th on the team in targets by adding Alvin Kamara into the mix with Jarvis and, of course, Michael Thomas, right? And I think you did a great job hitting on a lot of these guys. This is where it gets difficult. Can I throw Garrett Wilson into the mix? Is Garrett Wilson becoming the number 1 in New York unreasonable? I think it's more reasonable than Olave, to be honest with you. Now, you can like the quarterback situation in New Orleans more, but back to your point, you definitely think the Jets are going to trail in a ton of games, don't you? So if I told you, hey, Garrett Wilson leads the rookie class in yards, I don't think that's an outlandish thought coming in to this season at 20-1. Romeo Doubs, I get it, it's Guys Rodgers. He is wide receiver 4 on that team, no questions asked, by the way. That's before we get into what Aaron Jones is going to do as a pass catcher for this football team. Bob Tonyan back all of a sudden. Like that, listen, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo? I cannot believe that this guy sits here right now at 14-1, to be honest with you, Mike.
Agreed. I think there's a bunch of odds when we go through the awards that seem off. I think Dubs is a function of him gaining steam throughout the preseason. You're right about where he sits on the depth chart, but he gained a lot of steam. Don't bet him at all now. I think it's a crazy bet. If you had bet him previously and gained some of that steam and you want to use that cash out option, I agree. But betting him now, I think, is silly. The one guy I would, as you go down the list a little bit, a lot of fantasy guys like Rachaad White with an opportunity there. If something happens, Rachaad White could take over a starting job. You mentioned Malik Willis at 50-1. I would mention Desmond Ridder at 25-1. So you have a path there, right? Kenny Pickett gets the starting job. He's 2 or 3-1, but then Ridder takes over. Willis takes over. Those are interesting guys to talk about, but this is, of all the awards markets, the most fascinating one. I think the hardest to get a pinpoint 1 or 2 guys.
Do you think it is justifiable, the gap that exists between not just Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder, but even with including Kenny Pickett? Do you? Why is he 50-1 and Ridder is 25-1? What is that? That doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest with you.
I think it's a function of the market telling you that they think Tannehill is the unquestioned starter, Mariota having less of a firm grip on it, and Trubisky having virtually no grip on it at this point. I think that's all that is. I think you're probably fair to question that, but I would just say people don't think Willis. The market isn't as high on Willis as you are, and they think Tannehill will be the starter. The reality with guys like Tannehill and other quarterbacks of that ilk is he really going to have the opportunity to make that many mistakes early with Tennessee? He may be mistake prone, but when you and I just said previous segment, Derrick Henry till the wheels fall off, Tannehill would have to be actively bad for him to lose a job.
So now only Pickett has the chance to start week 1. But just bear with me.
Yes.
If I told you that right now the week 1 starters were these 3 rookie quarterbacks, Pickett, Willis, and Ridder, right? Forget who would you think would be the favorite then based on the scenarios that they are in? Because I'll tell you right now, if you told me Malik Willis was the week 1 starter in Tennessee, I think he would be a cut above the rest, like a gap between the other two because of the situation that he would be in and what he brings to the table as a runner.
I think it's okay to talk about that in practical terms, that you think he'd have a better chance to win, but I don't think the odds board would look like that. The Steelers are too public of a team. Steelers starting quarterback is going to get a lot of juice, especially when the defense is as good as it is. If you take the quarterback position away from both teams, compare the Steelers and the Titans roster, do you feel strongly one way or the other? Steelers defense is better. Titans offensive line is better. Receiving options, Steelers better. Like, you have to, that's the way I would look at it going in. I don't think the market loves Tennessee going into the year, but again, a very hard team to bet on, very unpredictable.
But the market does like Tennessee more than the Steelers, right? But Pickett is the one with the chance to actively start this potential so much earlier than the others. I'll say this lastly. Again, we've mentioned fantasy a little bit here on today's show. In fantasy football, everybody knows the value of when a starting running back goes down, you swoop in, whether you have the handcuff, you can run to the waiver wire, whatever it might be. I wonder if that is how this is decided. An injury to a star back, and one of these guys just swoops in, your Isaiah Spillers of the world, and all of a sudden they're just a lead back with a ton of carries on a good football team.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come back. We'll do Defensive Player of the Year and more on the grid.
the early line.
A helmet swinging incident. Oh my goodness, Myles Garrett basically got banned from the NFL. Aaron Donald doing this. The NFL is going to have to step in here and, I don't know, give him 5 or 6 games. The NFL was very quick with the response. These are practices. We don't do anything with these practices. We don't sanction these practices. We're not going to go in there and say there's going to be violations from practices. That's up to the team itself.
Only on Sports Grid. The morning after.
The Dodgers probably at the top, but who do you think are true contenders to maybe knock off LA?
I mean, either the Braves or the Mets absolutely could do it. The Braves, their lineup wears down pitching, and I've seen this over and over again where they're up against top guys, and they look bad for the first few innings, but they eventually get to them. They're just really good approaches at the plate.
The Sports Grid Network.
If you want to pick like a pro, you need to be in the know. The future of sports gaming is now, and we take you inside the lines, breaking down all the action and what it means for your bet slip. Turn down the game and tune into Sports Grid Radio. Other networks talk sports talk, but we walk the walk, right up to the window. Sports Grid Radio.
Listen free on the Sports Grid Radio app, iHeart, or TuneIn, or catch us on Sirius XM Sports Grid Channel 159.
Your heart's racing. The clock's running out. It all comes down to this. We're talking pregame. 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 Get locked in with Game Time Decisions. Your hosts, Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart, will get you ready for game time. Everything you need to know before a game goes off the board, with the bet slips to back it up. Make your best bet with live odds updates, late breaking news, up-to-the-minute injury reports, and real-time analytics from inside the sportsbooks. All the odds, all the action, from sports wagering insiders and industry pros like Donnie Rightside, Cam Lou, Cousin Sal, the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, and more. Get the winning edge every weekday afternoon from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 Pacific. It's Game Time Decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
All right, a couple games today. We're going to get into the preseason games in just a moment. We've got Jets-Giants. That's a heck of a battle. Preseason week 3, Jets-Giants. Get excited. I don't know if it was week 3 of the regular season if people get fired up, but week 3 of the preseason, probably not the most juice you'll see on a game. Lions-Steelers with future Hall of Fame Kenny Pickett, Hall of Fame quarterback Kenny Pickett. Featured later this afternoon. We'll get to those in just a moment. I did say we're going to do Defensive Player of the Year odds, so I just wanted to set it up for everybody. I've talked about this in great detail. We're trying to put you in a position to win the award, not predict in August who is going to win it in February. Sure. And I think at the top of the board, you're looking at guys like Garrett and TJ Watt at 7-1 were the co-favorites. I think you're consistently looking at this coronation of players. And Garrett put up a really good season last year, just it wasn't TJ Watt's. And TJ Watt a couple of years ago put up a good enough season to win, and they gave it to Aaron Donald the third time. So you have to understand that there's scenarios like that are going to happen. I think it makes sense to have a piece of those two guys at the top, but as you drop down the board a little bit, Aaron Donald, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Darius Leonard, Max Crosby, Joey Bosa at 25-1. I think the Chargers players like Bosa and Mack and Derwin James and Kenneth Murray, I think those guys are going to take a bunch of plays away from one another. They could be the best defense in the league, and I don't think one guy is going to get credit for it. Joey could. That's the only option there. My favorite bets are Nick Bosa at 14-1 and Max Crosby at 22-1. Max Crosby has Chandler Jones added to the other side. These odds were 30-1 just a few weeks ago. Hopefully I didn't impact the market negatively for you bettors out there watching and listening. But I think his extension, the new coaching staff, the addition of Chandler Jones, I think are setting up for him to be a primary player there. I think Nick Bosa is one of the best players in the entire league and sometimes gets overshadowed by good players on his defense and an older brother, to be honest. But I think Nick is right there at the top. Nick and Max Crosby are two positions I want to take going into this year.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. Max, I think I'm seeing right now at 30, so if people want to still try and come in on that Crosby number, they can. I'll say two things quickly on two guys from the same team. I think Micah Parsons, at 10-1 is interesting because this was a guy I feel like when drafted at Penn State, like, man, this is going to be a really talented linebacker. And they were like, you know what? Nobody can stop this guy off of the edge. As a rookie, he was a real candidate, it felt like, in this market last year. So just another season better and zero time wasted in using him in an optimum way. I think this is going to be one of these guys that, and you see it's booked this way, who is going to enter the perennial contender. That's what TJ is. That's what Donald is. And I think that's why Micah is right up there. I'll say this other thing, though. Last year, he was one of two Cowboys that were in the mix. The other was Trayvon Diggs, who is now at 75-1. Leave that alone. He is really not that good of a cornerback in coverage. Did a great job taking the ball away, but we know, Mike, that year to year, turnovers can be fluky. The interceptions come and go. That's what makes it so tough to find a corner in this market. Oh, I'm going to pick Jalen Ramsey. Well, he only finished with 3 interceptions because nobody threw the football his way. Diggs is one of these guys where I think even if his interception numbers are high, it's going to be tough because when people dig into the fact that he's giving up so many yards, it's a hard guy to make a full case for.
Yeah, agreed. I just don't know that, team success doesn't always have to correlate here, but I think Micah Parsons would have to put up big numbers in order to win this award. He could do it. He's that good.
He can.
But
he can.
I think he's going to be other guys competing. TJ Watt put up a monster season last year. He just did, sack record and the whole thing. So, all right, let's move on to the games of the day. I said Jets-Giants. Let's get excited. The spread sits at 4.5. The Jets are favored. MetLife, not too far from where Kev is, just across the river from where I am, Studio 34 in Manhattan. Kevin in Bellworks in New Jersey. Money line, Jets are minus 200. Total is 38.5. What's your approach to start this game off, Kev?
So the one thing we always talk about with the preseason is we're trying to get a read on who is going to be available. This number right now, it's in the same building, so we don't have to talk really home field advantage, right? It's shading Jets heavy. So are we seeing no starters here for the New York Giants? Possibly, right? That's what at least the number indicates there. You look at the preseason performances for these groups, both teams have been able to cross 20-plus in all of their games and have also allowed 20-plus in all but one. The Jets' lone time they did not was when they gave up 16 first-half points and then threw that second-half shutout. So could today potentially fit a description, Mike, of maybe an over? 38.5. Guys are playing for jobs. It's not like the guys that are out there aren't going to be trying. If I'm jumping in this game pre-game, I'm looking at 38.5 as potentially the direction to go.
Yeah, I'm with you. These games can be really messy. We don't have the same kind of situation that we do in the late game with the Lions and the Steelers where those coaches really need to see a couple of things out of the team. The Giants and the Jets are sort of locked in to what they're trying to do. They're just trying to get Zach healthy. Flacco ain't going to be out there. The Giants are just trying to get Daniel Jones to the starting gate, and we're not going to see anything crazy out of these teams. The Giants' offense, people have expectations for them during the year. We talked a lot about Daniel Jones. The Brian Daboll Coach of the Year market doesn't make any sense to me at all, and he's one of the co-favorites, right, with Brandon Staley, Kev? I know we're not talking about the awards anymore, but I really don't see a path for that. What would the Giants season look like for Brian Daboll to win Coach of the Year? I think this offensive line, I'm glad they added Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau and got experience on both sides of the ball. But I just am really struggling with the Giants' path to success. I think the defense is really going to struggle. I hope Barkley and Jones remain upright for the season and we see some things out of the offense, but the pass catchers are just not as exciting as they were. Kenny Golladay is looking like a guy that's had hip surgery and is a couple of years out from that. Sterling Shepard coming back. No Evan Ingram. There's just not a lot of exciting options. This game is about getting everybody to the finish line, so I'm with you. I don't see a lot of offensive explosion today.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. I'll say two things that are on the overarching point. Look, if you're betting Dable or Dan Campbell or Doug Peterson in this Coach of the Year market, you have to think they're going to the playoffs. I'm sorry, I don't care how awful any of these teams were last season. I don't think you're winning Coach of the Year at 7-10. I do not think that's just not how this award is going to work. Secondly, on your Saquon point, I know the concern is health. That is beyond understandable. With that being said, his season-long numbers, if you are willing to take a swing on health, they are all enticing. Because, Mike, they are going to use this guy, I think, a lot. I think on the ground and through the air, it's about health. But I don't know where you're on Saquon Barkley. We talk about talent. But I don't think this is a player that, in terms of what he could be, was overrated. I think he's just been unavailable, really.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today. As I was commuting in, about all the machinations that the Giants fans have had to put themselves through with all the coaching changes. And there was an honest decision from Dave Gettleman in a quarterback-rich market that let's run it back with Eli. We'll draft this running back. We'll sign Nate Solder, draft a guard, Will Hernandez, and we'll be good to go. 0 for 4. Literally 0 for 4 in that one season on the decisions. Solder was at the end of his career. Hernandez, they just let him walk. He's on Arizona now. Saquon's been banged up, and Eli is retired. Now, who would they have drafted instead of Saquon Barkley?
Darnold.
Would they have drafted Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold? Those probably wouldn't have worked out either. So I wonder, would they have had a moment of clarity and drafted Josh Allen? Doubtful. That was not rumored at the time. They were looking at the other guys. So it really is pretty crazy. The overrated thing for Barkley, he has been unavailable. He and Christian McCaffrey missing tons of games in the last 2 seasons. And early in his career, they were doing what the Steelers did to Najee Harris last year, slamming him into the line of scrimmage a lot. And Saquon is both of those guys are really great pass catchers. At least we saw from Najee, and we saw this from Saquon in year 1, right? We saw a lot of talent there and ability. We just haven't been able to see it since. I think the Steelers have a little bit of a clearer path than the Giants did those few years ago because the quarterback situation was so muddled. So that's kind of where we're at. Today's game, yeah, I think I don't think we see a lot of points here. So let's line it up here. Just a few minutes to go. Lions, Steelers. Steelers laying 6.5 points, minus 250 money line, 39.5. The Steelers have to play the QBs, Kev. They're just going to play them. I don't know how much for each guy. I know Tomlin's going to want to get them to the finish line, or to the starting line, I should say. But I think the Steelers offense is going to run like the Steelers offense for at least a portion of this game, a good portion of this game.
So there's two kind of competing things here. The one is Pittsburgh is going to offer up 3 quarterbacks that you know, not just Trubisky and Pickett, but Mason Rudolph. For the other side of it, though, is I just don't feel like the massive quarterback advantage, high spreads have really panned out as often as people thought. Take the Seattle-Dallas game just the other day. Like 7 on the road. Lost the game outright, actually. The Seattle Seahawks. Here's the fascinating part of it, though, for me, Mike. We talk about live betting, right? Timing your bets. I feel like a lot of people say, you know what, I'll bet Pittsburgh early. I'll get the Trubisky-Pickett portion of this game, and I'll move on. I actually think the biggest advantage might come when Mason Rudolph is in. Some reports out there that Mason Rudolph maybe has a trade market available. I think Mason Rudolph then maybe gets the entire second half. Steelers are looking to flash it so they can cash it. And that will be the bottom of the barrel for the Detroit Lions that is out there. I think maybe regardless of what your halftime tally looks like, and it's certainly, if it's close, that's when I'm interested in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I love that call. If you look at the Steelers' quarterbacks' stats during the preseason, they've all been good. Pickett's really looks great, but Mason Rudolph has played the most, and his stats look awesome. I think you have an advantage when you have a guy that's in his 5th year in the league going up against base defenses from guys that are about to be cut. That's the reality. So I'm with Kevin on this. I think you can bet this one live, and I think the Steelers and Lions can trade blows early, and then Mason Rudolph playing in the second half could look really good with some of the Steelers' secondary, tertiary wide receivers. Always be attentive to social media and finding reports on who is or who's not going to play. We've seen plenty of players this preseason, full uniform, warming up, and then at kickoff, they're not playing. So you just have to be mindful of that as you get into this preseason market. We're going to close out Kevin and I's first edition of Pro Football Today for the season right after this. It's been exciting to walk through all these awards and everything else, and we're going to bring you a lot of excitement all throughout this season. We'll close out this show right after this.
You might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
The Bostonian versus the book.
They don't kick field goals. So now, like, a stupid number like 32 or something should be used because it ain't a multiple of 3 and all these other things that go into making the numbers. Like,
all right,
they ain't ever going to kick a field goal, so 35 and a half is not an option or something. Like, you got to move it quicker. People will figure it out. The rhombuses and the parallelograms will figure it out.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Pro Football Doc has found its new home right here with Sports Injury Central. And with that comes our expansion into other sports. Sports Injury Central will give you nonstop exclusive injury analysis from experienced team doctors from all 3 major sports. Doctors with resumes that include teams like the Chicago Bulls, the Texas Rangers, and the LA Chargers. So gain a fantasy, DFS, and betting edge right now for free at SICScore.com.
Maurice Allen, 2015-2016 European Long Drive Tour champion, 2017 world number 1. Me personally, I keep my game face on me all the time. Especially coming out of the bunker, leaving the range, or even leaving the course. What's your story?
Your heart's racing. The clock's running out. It all comes down to this. We're talking pregame. Pregame. Get locked in with Game Time Decisions. Your hosts, Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart, will get you ready for game time. Everything you need to know before a game goes off the board, with the bet slips to back it up. Make your best bet with live odds updates, late breaking news, up-to-the-minute injury reports, and real-time analytics from inside the sportsbooks. All the odds, all the action, from sports wagering insiders and industry pros like Donnie Rightside, Cam Lou, Cousin Sal, the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, and more. Get the winning edge every weekday afternoon from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 Pacific. It's Game Time Decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
And we're back, closing out the show. I hope you had fun. We had a blast. So Pro Football Today will be here on the grid every Sunday from 10 to 1. I'm out next week. George Kurtz will step in for me, along with Kevin being here, the mainstay. But we'll be here every week. Like I said, it'll be Warren Sharp and Adam Kaplan and Pro Football Doc and others helping us all throughout the year of this show, all the way through into the Super Bowl. It's a lot of fun. We take you through every betting market, every game, player props we'll have fun with. And we'll continue to try to have a lot of fun as we talk with futures, too. Futures we're not going to leave here. We'll talk about it throughout the season because you can get some really fun markets and better markets, Kevin. I've talked a lot about waiting on the Bills and maybe waiting on the Chiefs and waiting on the Bucks because of some tougher early season matchups, and we'll track that from week to week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One thing also, though, I know people are waiting on is week 1. And some of the games that are going to really jump off of the page. And as we're wrapping up the preseason today, I want to mention one game quickly, Mike. I don't know if there was a game that caught your eye, but it is Kansas City in Arizona. I do not want to fall too far into a narrative trap. But one of my bigger takeaways from the preseason, albeit 3 drives, was that Patrick Mahomes looked like he might finish this year at a 100% touchdown rate on every single drive he plays. He at least did that in the preseason. Arizona feels like they're going in the wrong direction. Early season, no DeAndre Hopkins. I know that laying road favorite status to open the year is maybe not the smartest move. We'll see when we get there. But boy, Mike, I really think the Chiefs have the chance to pour it on Arizona early in the year.
Yeah, I hate to get started betting road favorites, but sometimes I look at week 1 and try to find edges, and I think that the Eagles are not laying enough points to the Lions, to be honest, in week 1. I think it's still a pretty significant gap between those two teams. I'd love that hook to come my way. Kevin and I will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody.